Good morning, preppers. Time is short. Time is short in this very real scenario I want to talk about. Ashley and I had the honor tonight to go talk with a Holocaust survivor. Her name is Irene Miller. She actually came to Mount Pleasant and actually talked about her story, which was a story you would actually guess, obviously, how it was, just filled with tragedy and horror. And there's a few times I really just try to contain myself from not crying. But the book she has, I'll go and show you the book real quick. I went ahead and bought one, Into No Man's Land by Irene Miller. It's a historical memoir of the things that she went through. Now, this isn't simply just talking about the Jewish Holocaust, etc. That's not what this video is about, but it is talk about prepping. And I want you to stick with this because some of the lessons that she had to learn the hard way are the lessons that we're actually preparing for now. And the first two I want to talk about is simply for prepping itself. She actually had to, with her family, the first lesson is this. She said that in her family, there was almost 100 people in her family living in Poland when the Nazis invaded. And her dad had enough sense to take him, the mom, and the two daughters and get out. And they fled to go into Russia. And Russia didn't want to accept him either. And the horrors that she went through there, and even being sent to a forced labor camp in Siberia, was awful too. But it wasn't death like the Nazis were actually delivering. And in that situation, the dad had the sense to get out. At the last minute, he got out with the wife and two daughters, but out of their entire family, only the mom and the two daughters were the only ones that survived. Even the dad ended up not surviving either. But everybody else in the family, the entire family died under the Nazis. So I always say bugging out is probably not your best strategy, but in situations like this, who knows what might actually happen here in the United States even, or whatever country you're in, and bugging out in this situation may be something you'll have to do. And the two main obstacles they dealt with when they bugged out, of course, not the term they used back then, was cold. They literally, when they got to the Russian border, they got stopped at the border, and they lived 6 weeks with hundreds of other people in a field. And all they had was blankets on the ground, on the snow, and down comforters, trying to keep themselves warm. And the mom continuously, they were there for 6 weeks. The mom said, look, you need to keep moving to try to keep warm. But people were dying all over the place. Babies were dying. Absolutely awful. So number one is actually, if you are looking at bugging out, you want to be able to make sure you have what you need to keep warm. I always talk about layers, but having waterproof garments on, lots of sweatpants where you can dress in layers and actually take it off because you want to get all sweaty as you're hiking too. But even if you're going to be home during crap hits the fan, you got to be able to make sure you stay warm, especially we're heading into this winter where we're actually seeing diesel shortages and fuel shortages and all these other problems coming along. That's the first lesson. But number two, obviously, is food. And she said that at one point when she got in Russia, they basically took the entire family and sent them off on a train to Siberia. And on the train, all they got was 1 cup of soup per day. That's it. For 6 weeks on a train, a cup of soup. And when they got to Siberia, it was practically worse. Eventually, they got exported to Uzbekistan, and they said there they practically had no food. They were literally starving to death. So, of course, prepping, we always talk about trying to have lots and lots of food available, stockpiled, whatever the case may be. But if you are going to be at home, plant a garden, orchard, etc. So lots of lessons to be learned, obviously. But something else too, besides just simply, obviously, stockpiling things to keep yourself warm and food as well. She said, look, I'm not going to talk about politics, which I respect that. She didn't want to get into that. But she did say that the things that are happening now it's like deja vu. Those are her words. It's like deja vu happening all over again. And she said that dictators understand, and she's absolutely right about this, dictators like Adolf Hitler was elected in power. He was elected into power legally. He didn't just take over the government, but understand that the country was in such a depression, and he put out very powerful thoughts and speeches to the people that he's like, listen, I can bring you out of this. All you have to do is give me more power. Give me more power. And she said it always starts with a very small injustice. And that is actually what's happening right now in front of all of us. And again, not even just the United States, but all these injustices popping up here and there. And she said all it took at that time was for people to not stand up. And next thing you know, he had full power of the entire country. And we're seeing the same thing happening over again because she said what happens at that point is when there's so many injustices that eventually it turns into Fear. 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 She said the government will spew out so much fear that that's all you want to do is follow them and do what they tell you to do because you have fear that you'll actually be labeled as the criminal. And isn't that what we're seeing right now too, especially here in the United States, that there's all kinds of different groups that are being flagged by the government saying that we're the ones that are extremist. And there's a lot of fear out there. I mean, I am proud of Americans, many of them, for they are standing up. You know, we actually see all kinds of videos and people, you know, getting together, like on Rumble, for example. Just one example of people saying, we're not going to put up with this or take this. And it seems to me, at least there is some kind of like pushing back here in the United States compared to what happened in Nazi Germany. I don't think there's a lot of pushing back. So anyways, it was very interesting. It ended up, her dad died, but the mom and the two daughters survived, which is amazing, and ended up moving to Israel. And she's just had a very wonderful, full life since then, just trying to, she's always a visionary, you know, keep going here and there and try to better yourself, which is something I always try to stress too. But there's definitely lessons that we can learn, because when we talk about the atrocities had, we don't even want to think in our modern times and our technology and everything that could happen again. But you know what else she said? And we'll end with this. She said that at Germany at the time too, there was so much technological advances and so much growth and everything that they were basically saying that kind of thing could never happen there either. Isn't that interesting? All right. Anyway, so if you want to pick up her book, I would recommend it. I haven't read it yet, but I still recommend it. I'll put a link to it in the description below if you want to pick one up. But anyways, lots of lessons we can learn. And I hope this helps you as far as prepping goes and being ready for, I hate to say this, what very well may come in our country as well.